All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive. Today we're tackling something I know a lot of you have been asking about, high school.
High school, huh?
But not just surviving it, more like conquering it, like thriving. We're going to be using this super popular YouTube video by influencer Tam Kaur as our guide for this one.
Oh, Connor, yeah, I've seen her stuff.
She's great.
Her video's really interesting, I think, because it's basically like this giant master class. Like, she tries to cover absolutely every single thing you could possibly think about, from how to look your best to, like, acing your classes, to even just making real friends.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, that makes it like the perfect source material for us to do a deep dive on, right? Because no matter where you are in life, like maybe you're about to start high school, or you know someone who is, maybe you're helping them through it, or even if you're just looking back on those years, I think this is going to resonate. But before we jump in, I want to hear from you. What's that one big high school memory that you have? Like good or bad, just whatever comes to mind first. Think about it for a sec, because we're going to come back to that later.
It's pretty smart, I think, how Kaur starts her video with this whole pre-back-to-school glow-up thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because for a lot of people, high school is about so much more than just books and tests. It's about, like, figuring out who you are, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And she's not talking about like some dramatic makeover or anything. It's more about finding those little routines that just make you feel good.
Right.
Like she talks about using natural oils for your hair and skin.
Oh, interesting.
She even has this thing with cold spoons to depuff your eyes in the morning. I know. I was a little skeptical too, but I actually tried it and it works.
Wow, cool. I'll have to try that one.
You should, yeah.
It's like she's saying beauty is about taking care of yourself, like from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
Highlighting what you already have, not trying to change who you are.
Exactly.
She even talks about how to work with simple makeup and how you can use accessories, even if you have to wear a uniform, to make it your own.
I love that. It all goes back to her big message about being confident in yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
She's really clear that like everybody, even the people who seem super popular, has insecurities. It's way more about focusing on growing as a person than comparing yourself to others.
So true. She even talks about how to deal with those mean people that we all encounter, or at least hear about.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And she handles it in this really refreshing way, like emphasizing empathy.
Right.
Like, often those people who are being negative are actually dealing with their own stuff. They might be hurt.
Yeah, Kaurs actually argues that in the long run, after high school is over, that popularity thing sort of resets anyway,
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And the people who end up doing the best are the ones who actually took the time to, like, grow and learn as people.
I like that.
Yeah, it's not about being the most popular kid.
Well,
It's about being a good person and working on yourself. She's all about being kind to others, starting conversations, making connections early on. It's almost like she's saying high school's like this early networking opportunity.
that's an interesting way to put it, but I can kind of see that.
Right. It's like planting those seeds for your future.
And it connects back to all that stuff about personal growth, right?
Exactly.
Like she even says to, quote, fake it till you make it,
Oh, yeah, that one.
which sounds kind of strange at first, but
Right.
basically she means acting confident even if you don't quite feel it yet.
Yeah, and I think that can be tough for people to grasp. Like, sometimes you do have to push yourself a little outside your comfort zone, you
Yeah.
know? Like, she talks about how she used to be really shy, but she's that fake it till you make it tactic to overcome it.
And she connects that to her whole philosophy about having an abundance mindset.
Oh, yeah, the abundance mindset. I like that.
It's about like setting big goals for yourself and believing that you can achieve them, even if, maybe you haven't always been a straight A student or whatever.
Right.
She actually says that's how she turned her grades around. Like she went from getting B's and C's to getting all A's.
That's pretty incredible. It's inspiring, right? Like, you really can change things if you put your mind to it.
I think so, yeah.
Which kind of leads into her whole point about how school isn't everything.
Right.
Like, you will find your people eventually, even if high school feels a bit like, a jungle sometimes.
That's a great analogy.
And speaking of finding your people, she has a whole section on how friendships change, which I think is so important for people to hear.
Oh, absolutely.
It can be so hard when friends drift apart, but it happens.
It does.
And it's often just a part of growing up, right?
It is.
Like, you're changing, they're changing, and sometimes those paths just go in different directions.
And she makes a point of being really real about high school drama. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to happen. It's inevitable.
It's gonna happen.
But her advice is to focus on being a good person and
Yeah.
developing those good habits, because those things are what really matter after you graduate.
I love that. And it's a great transition into her advice on studying because it's clear, like, she was a good student.
Right.
But her tips aren't just about hitting the books, you know. She talks about romanticizing, studying,
Well, emphasis.
like finding ways to actually enjoy it instead of dreading it.
Okay, that sounds interesting. How do you do that?
Well, she suggests things like maybe finding inspiring study-related content online or making a cozy study space for yourself, you know?
Right.
Something that feels inviting.
I like that.
And she's a big advocate for tackling procrastination head on.
That's always a tough one.
It is. She says, do your homework the day you get it, make it a habit.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Like build that muscle early on.
It makes me think of that book, Atomic Habits, by James Clear. You know how small changes over time can lead to big results.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, organization is key. She's all about planners, color coding, time blocking, like whatever system works for you.
It's about finding what works for you.
Exactly.
But it all emphasizes how important those executive function skills are, right?
Totally. And not just for school, for life.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
She also recommends the Pomodoro technique, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
But even if you have, it's a good reminder that breaking down study sessions into those smaller chunks with breaks in between can really help you focus.
Absolutely. And it helps prevent burnout, too, which is important.
Definitely. And Kaur is all about using every resource you can get your hands on, like teachers, study guides, even old exams, to really understand what's expected of you and how to do well.
It's about working smarter, not just harder.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And that strategic approach, she applies that to more than just academics. She's a big believer in getting involved in clubs and activities.
Oh, yeah.
Not just for fun, but to learn new skills and make connections.
I like that. It's very entrepreneurial.
Right. It's like that go-getter mentality. And even speaking up in class, for her, it's about building confidence and solidifying what you're learning.
It's all connected.
It is, and it's amazing. So we've covered a lot, everything from turmeric face masks to like the power of positive self-talk.
It's been quite a ride.
It has.
Yeah.
But Kara doesn't just stop at like academics and appearances, you know.
Right.
She has a whole section on creating a balanced lifestyle.
Oh, interesting.
And I think this is where her advice really resonates even with people who aren't in high school anymore.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's like she's saying, hey, you're going to have a lot on your plate, but don't forget to actually enjoy the experience too.
So true. Yeah, it really is about finding that balance, isn't it?
Totally. And it starts with like just remembering to make memories, you know? Like take pictures, keep a journal, just do the things that make you happy because honestly, these years, they fly by.
They really do.
Yeah.
And she doesn't shy away from talking about self-care and mental health,
No, not at all.
which is so important.
Yeah.
Like, it's not selfish to take a break and recharge, to do something you enjoy. It's essential, really, if you want to be your best self.
Something I wish I had figured out sooner.
Me too?
She's also big on the whole sleep schedule thing.
Oh, yeah, the classic sleep advice.
Which, anyone who's ever tried to get a teenager out of bed knows it's easier said than done.
Oh, for sure. But the science is there.
Yeah.
Like, good sleep is just crucial for everything. Mood, focus, your physical health.
Everything.
It's like trying to run a car with, like, no gas in the tank.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to work.
Not going to get very far.
And she has this one little hack that I've actually started using myself. She calls it, like, preparing for the morning the night before. Like, lay out your clothes, get your bag ready, even, like, plan what you're going to have for breakfast.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I know, right? It sounds so simple, but it really does make those crazy mornings a little less stressful.
It's amazing how much those little things can make a difference.
I know. And then, of course, she talks a lot about your support system, like having those people you can lean on when things get tough. Friends, family, mentors.
It's so important to have those people in your corner.
It really is. And it makes me think about what we were talking about earlier with friendships changing.
Oh, right.
It's something that I think a lot of people struggle with, not just in high school, but throughout life.
It is, and it's hard.
It is hard. But it's like people change, and that's okay.
Right. And sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah. Kaur actually has some interesting advice about dating in high school, too.
Oh, does she?
She does. She actually encourages embracing being single.
Really?
Yeah. Her reasoning is that it gives you more time to focus on yourself and avoids all that extra drama.
I mean, it's definitely a different perspective.
It is.
But when you think about it, those high school relationships, they can be so intense. And it's like, who needs that added pressure on top of everything else?
Exactly. It's like an extra layer of complication.
Totally.
And honestly, I think that's a really valuable message, even outside of high school.
I agree.
Like, it's about knowing your worth and not feeling like you have to be in a relationship to be happy or complete.
Right. Be comfortable with yourself.
Exactly. Now, I do want to acknowledge that a lot of Kaur's advice seems to be geared towards, like, a more traditional high school experience.
You're right.
Like, she talks a lot about clubs and extracurriculars, and those things aren't always available to everyone.
Yeah, that's true. And not all schools have the same resources.
Exactly. So it's important to keep that in mind. Like, everyone's experience is going to be different.
Absolutely.
And there's no one right way to do high school.
Right. It's about taking what works for you and making it your own.
Exactly. And I think this is where critical thinking is so important. Like, we should be encouraging young people to really evaluate the advice they're getting, even from someone like Kaur, who obviously has good intentions, and make choices that are right for them.
Oh, for sure. Be discerning.
Yes. Like, just because something worked for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone.
Exactly.
Okay, so one of the things that really stood out to me was Kaur's whole emphasis on romanticizing studying.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, I just think it's such a cool concept. Like, finding ways to make learning something you actually look forward to
I like that.
instead of something you dread.
It's about tapping into your own motivation, right?
Totally. And she even suggests, like, maybe watching study-related content on YouTube or TikTok.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
I know, right? Like, turning those platforms into learning tools.
It's smart.
It is. And then, of course, she's all about organization and time management, which, let's be honest, are skills we could all probably use a little help with.
Yeah, no matter what stage of life you're in.
Exactly.
Those are essential.
They are, for sure. And speaking of, like, setting yourself up for success, Kaur is a huge believer in setting big goals.
Oh, yeah.
Like, really high aspirations, and believing that you can actually achieve them.
I like that.
And she talks about how, like, she was able to improve her grades so much by adopting that abundance mindset, you know?
Right, like believing that there's enough success to go around.
Exactly. And I think that's so powerful because our beliefs really do shape our reality.
They do. If you think you could do something, you're way more likely to actually make it happen.
Exactly.
And even if you don't achieve every single thing you set out to do, the process of trying and growing is valuable in itself.
So true. It's about the journey, not just the destination.
Right.
Okay, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Kaur's whole fake it till you make it philosophy.
Oh, yeah, that's a tricky one.
It is, right? Because on one hand, it can be a really great way to build confidence. Like, you're sort of acting as if you already have what you want. But on the other hand, it could be misinterpreted as being inauthentic, you know?
Yeah, it's a fine line.
It is. I think the key is to approach it with, like, self-awareness and intention. It's not about pretending to be someone you're not.
Right.
It's more about, like, stepping outside your comfort zone and trying on those behaviors that align with the person you want to become.
It's like experimenting with a new identity.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes those new behaviors actually lead to genuine internal shifts.
Right, like you start to believe it yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like that saying, we are what we repeatedly do.
Oh, I liked that.
If we act confidently, even if we don't feel confident at first, eventually it'll become more natural.
Yeah, it's like rewiring your brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that idea, you can apply it to pretty much anything in life.
So true. Now, one of the things I found really refreshing about Kaur's approach was how much she emphasized authenticity and self-acceptance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like even when she's talking about things like makeup and skincare, it's always about enhancing your natural features, not trying to change who you are.
It's a really important message.
It is, especially for young people who are constantly bombarded with these images of, like, airbrushed perfection.
Absolutely. It's about embracing your individuality.
Exactly. Find your own path. You know,
Be yourself.
Be yourself. Now, before we move on, I want to go back to something that Kaur said earlier that I think really resonated with me.
Okay.
Her advice about friendships changing, because that's something that we all experience, you know, not just in high school.
Yeah, it's a lifelong thing.
It is. Like, as we grow and our priorities change, it's natural for some relationships to, like, fade away while new ones come into our lives. And I think it's about learning to embrace those changes and realizing that sometimes letting go can actually be a good thing.
It can be hard, though, right?
It is hard, but it makes space for those new connections that are a better fit for who you are now. It's a reminder that your social circle, like, it's constantly evolving.
And that's okay. It's normal.
It's normal. Okay, so I want to hear your thoughts on Kaur's advice about taking advantage of all the resources that are available to you, like whether it's teachers or clubs or even like online
It's
communities.
about being proactive, right?
Yes, and realizing that you don't have to figure everything out on your own.
Like ask for help when you need it.
Exactly. There are people out there who want to help you succeed.
There are. It's about being resourceful.
It is.
And it's not just about asking for help. It's like realizing that you don't have to like reinvent the wheel,
Right.
Someone else has probably already dealt with whatever you're going through.
Exactly. There's probably a solution out there.
You just have to find it.
Exactly. And I think Kaur's message overall, it's so empowering.
Yeah.
It's like she's saying, look, you actually have more control over your high school experience than you think.
Right.
It's not just something you have to survive. It's an opportunity to grow, to learn, to like build this foundation for your future.
And that really comes through, I think, in her last section where she talks about like lifestyle and well-being.
Oh, yeah.
It's like she's reminding these teens it's not all about grades and like achievements.
Right.
Taking care of yourself, both physically and mentally, that's essential for success
Mm-hmm. In every area of life.
in every area.
She's, of course, a big advocate for the classic advice of a consistent sleep schedule.
The sleep schedule, yeah.
Which, I know, we've all heard it a million times, but it's so important.
It's true.
Especially for teenagers who are naturally inclined to, stay up late and sleep in.
It's tough, but the research is clear. Good sleep is just so important
Yeah.
for everything.
And she gives this tip that honestly has changed my life.
Wow.
She calls it like preparing for the morning the night before.
Okay.
It sounds so simple, but like laying out your clothes the night before, getting your bag packed, even figuring out what you're going to have for breakfast.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I know, right?
I should do that.
It makes those crazy mornings so much less stressful.
It's amazing how much those little things can help.
I know, right? It really is. She also reminds us, that having a strong support system is key.
Absolutely.
Like surround yourself with good people.
Yeah. The people who lift you up.
Yeah, friends, family, mentors.
And she doesn't shy away from the fact that those relationships, they're going to change.
No, they do.
They evolve over time.
Yeah.
And it's natural for some friendships to kind of fade as you grow and you learn more about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But the important thing is to like recognize that and to let go of relationships that are no longer serving you.
It's hard, but it's so important.
It is hard.
It makes space for new connections.
Exactly. Connections that fit who you are now.
Exactly. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Tam Kaur's advice,
Yeah.
I'm struck by how much of it really does apply to everyone.
I agree.
Even if you're, way past high school.
It's true. Like her target audience might be teenagers, but those core ideas, the self-belief, taking action, having a growth mindset, that stuff is universal.
It really is.
Those are the tools that can help you through any challenge, really.
Mm-hmm.
High school, college, your career, your personal life.
It's about realizing that you have the power to shape your own experience.
Exactly. Now, before we go, let's go back to that high school memory or that question you had at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
When you think about it now, does it connect to anything we've talked about today?
Yeah, like has Kaur's advice given you any new perspective on it?
It's funny how looking back on something from your past, but with, like, fresh eyes, can make you see things so differently.
It's true, and it's a reminder that learning never really stops.
It doesn't. We're always changing, and there's always something new to learn. So as we finish this deep dive, I have one last question for you to think about.
Okay.
If you could go back and give your high school self just one piece of advice, what would it be?
No need to answer out loud, but keep that question in mind as you continue on your own journey.
Your own deep dive.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us, everyone.